Is it worth passing on a tradition of passing away in style? In Ghana, the art of coffin making is a big deal. Now let's find out how it is to make a living with the dead.
For all the orders I receive, about 95% are all fancy coffins. I think technology has a role to play in this business because I'm toying with this idea of even putting a motorized device in some of the coffins I will make so that these coffins can move on their own during the burial. And this is a concept that I am feverishly working towards. For me, I'm excited because this is going to be something that will revolutionize the space.
Before we find out why Douglas Tego decided to make a living from coffins, let's find out how they are made in the first place.
Making a fantasy coffin can take up to 2 weeks. Other complex designs can take up to a month. I often approach my work by starting with a freehand sketch of the design. Also, I surf the internet to get designs, then I begin to fabricate my wood one after the other to follow the intended design layout. Finally, I ensure that no nails show on the surface of the coffin. Then I get a sign writer to complete the work with the appropriate inscriptions if necessary.
In Ghana, the death rate is 7.63 deaths per 1,000 inhabitants. For funeral celebrations, their scale is determined by the social rank of the deceased, sometimes costing a year's salary. The expense extends to coffins, priced between 100 and 3,000 euros, exceeding the country's annual per capita income of 2,034 euros.
Here in Ghana, we do these fancy coffins for family reasons and also for aesthetic reasons. So we often look at the industry or the area that you worked, then we design the coffin to suit you. So these coffins become a testimony of who a person was when they were alive.
The tradition of fantasy coffin crafting in Ghana, initiated by Ataoko and Seth Kanikwe in the mid-1940s, has evolved with artists like Kujo Afutu and Hansen Ijare. How do they carry on the legacy?
Mainly, there are about 3 types of fantasy coffin. One that represents a family, and in this case, they do this to honor a family member or a relative. The second one is that which speaks about the person's profession. Then the third is one that people do just for beauty's sake.
Just a few corners from Hansen's coffin house, Kujo Afutu makes his artistic coffins too. What makes him a key figure in passing on this tradition?
In times past, our work could delay because of the paint. It takes days to dry up. But now, we actually use auto base and other paints that are used for cars. Just in a couple of hours, it dries up. Then you can quickly put your finishing touches to your coffin. It's interesting how I got into this fancy coffin making. So one day, I was walking around Teshi, a suburb of Accra, and I saw a design of a fish. I had to go close to it to realize it was a coffin. And I was really fascinated. So it drove a strong desire in me to start learning how to make these coffins. It wasn't really for the money. It was just to do something fancy that will let people get talking.
Douglas Tego was clear he wanted to learn the magic crafts from Kujo. After being an apprentice and serving under him for a year, he now established his own workshop. How does the young coffin maker contribute to the ongoing continuity of this unique art form?
I started working in building construction, but my mother didn't like my job, encouraged me to rather learn carpentry and specialize in coffin making. So I did. Later, when my mother died, my brothers suggested that I should display my mother's coffin outside. To them, this could serve as a form of advertisement that will attract customers to me. My mother was a cook, so I created a coffin that resembled banku, which was the food most people like. My mother's food was known as affordable, so I made an inscription of that on the coffin. Lots of people started placing orders from me. I decided to stay in this town, Bojiase, to ply my trade.
I
brought my little brother close to my business, and we've been working together for years. I also have one apprentice, but he is in school, and so when he closes, he comes to help us. Once he finishes schooling, he just needs a little polish up, and he will be ready to start work.
Daniel and his team won't be running out of work anytime soon. Celebrating the deceased with fantasy coffins is a skill and tradition that is worth passing on.